There are options. Well, we're not going to cover those, but yes, you have a right to buy, right to sell, stock sell to me at 37. But if I also have a right to tell you, by the way, your option no longer exists by simply giving you pre-arranged cancellation fee. I can say, okay, you bought this from me for $3. But anytime I want, I can pay you $1.50 and say your option doesn't exist anymore. Or I can say whatever in the money amount plus $1.50. Yes. Yeah, if you buy a put option. That's true. Yeah. So the option that I just called is called the Russian option. You know, Russians are bad people. You know. They tell you have some rights, then they say, oh, by the way, you didn't. It's from the old days. There are options where the payoff of a American option or a European option when they are exercised depends on the difference between the price at the time of exercise and the strike price. Presumably, you're going to exercise only when it is possible. That's the payoff. But it depends on the price on the day of exercise. There are these options called agent options. The payoff is the difference between the average of prices since the option was issued until its expiration. So every day, as soon as the option is issued, every day you're going to record the closing prices. You're going to average them. They can be exercised only at the maturity. And at maturity, the average price is going to turn out to be, let's say, 38. Well, you're at 37 put, you get nothing. If it average ends up being 36, and these are cash settled, I'll just pay you $1 per share. Done. They're very common and popular in Asia. They are also a good way of managing, hedging risks of repeating exposures. There is this little theorem in options. An option on a portfolio is cheaper than portfolio options. Think of it this way. Let's say we have an equal weighted index. Okay? I have 30 stocks and they all get equal weight. To hedge my exposures, I can either buy an option. Let's say I'm worried it could go down. I'm going to buy a put option, which is essentially an insurance contract. I'm insuring against market fall. Or I can buy put option on every single one of those individual stocks. Well, you're going to find out that that is actually a lot more expensive because portfolios are a lot less variable compared to individual stocks. Let me show you an example. I mean, we're going to cover these, but just to give you an idea. Let's look at SPY, which is actually, I'm more of a friend of WOO because it has much less management fee. I mean, it's like stock continues to paying dividend if you think about it. That's the management fee. But you're not getting the dividend. Let's look at the options. I'm just going to look at just next week, roughly at the money. The so-called implied volatility is 12.18. That roughly means over investment horizon of 1 year, you expect 68% of the time the return on this portfolio to be within plus or minus one standard deviation, which is that number. 95% of the time, assuming symmetry, it's going to be 2 times that number, plus or minus. It's a big number. Now, that's for a span of 1 year. If you want to look at just 1 month, divide that number by square root of 4. And you're going to find out why that's the case. Now, let's look at the relatively stable stock. Okay? I mean, what is the most stable stock that you can think of in the U.S.? Stock. I mean, there are treasury ETFs, but Microsoft, I can think of something more stable, but hey. Come on. Let's look at February 16th. Roughly at the money. It's 19%. Remember, this is one of the blue chip companies that worth over $3 trillion. And if you want even more stable, good old Coke. They have not failed to grow their dividends for a single year over the last 60 plus years. I mean, it doesn't get stabler than that. I know that's not a word, but sue me. So roughly at the money, 21%. I stand corrected in terms of Microsoft, as far as the market is concerned, is a little bit more stable than Coke. But these are the blue chip companies, and there are a lot of little companies on the S&P 500. They're not that stable. Let me give you an example. A recent addition to S&P 500, unfortunately, because I was hoping they were going to put Palantir instead of Uber. Let's look at Uber. %63%. As you see relatively shortly, the higher is the volatility, everything else being the same, the more expensive is an option. And there's a good reason for that. This is Uber, right? This is 2 weeks. I'm going to kind of roughly, I'm going to use the empirical rule just for illustrative purposes. 68. Come on. Divided by, it was 52. No. 26 square root. This basically says the kind of volatility you should expect within a 2 week span is 13%. If you guys remember the empirical rule, if a random variable has a normal distribution, 16% of the time it's going to end up above one standard deviation from the mean. Just for the hell of it, assume the mean is 0. So there is a 16% chance that this thing is going to end up 16%, oh, I'm sorry, it's the number 13% higher. Okay? Similarly, there's about 16% chance that it's going to end up 13% lower. And let's say you bought a call option at the money. Oh, let's make it out of the money. Let's make it $80. Okay. Now, what are the chances that this thing could end up above $80? Again, I'm going to use assumption of normality. This time I'm going to use Excel. That's the current price of stock, 68. Yeah, 68.50. 68 times 50 times 1.13. That's $77. Or let's do this. Wall is 80%. Period wall, assuming 2-week period. Annual wall divided by square root of 26.